everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here for another Sparkle and Shine interview series with Kendall of New Oregon Content Creation Services. Today, I have the lovely Cindy Cadet of Doll Girl Squad, and I will try not to tongue tie that throughout the interview today. But so I have Cindy of Doll Girl Squad, and she works with girls to help them understand the power of self-love, self-regulation, and self-empowerment. I have Cindy on today because, first of all, she's a nice, lovely lady, but also because she has a mission to help girls become strong women with positive emotional well-being and self-love. We are here for November. The theme this month is snuggling, family, love, giving, and receiving. And I think that Cindy and her business and her life are really, really excellent fit for this month's themes. So, Cindy, if you would, please say hi to our guests and tell them a little bit more about you and your business.
Sure. Hi, everyone. As you said, my name is Cindy J. Cadet. I am first and foremost a mom of a 8-year-old daughter, and I am a children's author. I have 3 children's books, the Brownie Kids series and a coloring book. I also mentor girls in my Doll Girl program. I love to talk to young girls and help them to um, understand the power of self-love, understand how to communicate with other girls, because a lot of times girls are competing against each other, and I help them to understand it's better to work together than to compete. And I also help them with conflict resolution, body image, um, different topics that might come up. So the social media, there's a lot of drama on social media, so we talk about that stuff. And I also am a mommy and me mentor where I work with moms and daughters. I'm a mommy coach. I help with secure attachments, and I'm just really excited to be on the show today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy. And just really quick, like share, because you work with a wide range of ages with girls. So can you just share really quick, like what that age range is and kind of how you pick that age range and like what you see the different parts of the work that you do with girls and their moms too, but with girls through that age range, because I know there's a bunch of stages in that wide range you do.
Yeah, definitely. So in my Doll Girl program, I work with girls ages 10 to 17. I've worked in elementary, middle, and high schools. Right now, I'm concentrating on middle school and high school because middle school is like that tricky time where the girls are trying to figure out who they are, come into their own bodies, and just trying to navigate in the world. And sometimes by the time they get to high school, I'm seeing that there's a lot of delay in trying to understand how to self-love, self-regulate, and resolve conflict with other fellow peers. So I work with the girls at age 10, and kind of follow with them throughout the next couple of years because I do work in some middle schools and high schools as well. When I work with my moms, I work with new moms because I believe that attachment bonding with your child is very unique and very important to your child's well-being as they grow and develop, and the different stages that go into adulthood.
Right, exactly. And part of, I mean, we're both women, so we don't have to go there, but, but I love how I love one of the things that I love about the work that you do, Cindy, and part of the reason that obviously I have you on the show, but I've tried to kind of see and watch what you're doing in the online space is because these issues, these troubles, if you would, these challenges, these struggles that we have, the younger they start, the more pervasive they get. And then we end up adult women who are supposed to like be women, but we really didn't learn how to be women well is something that I sometimes say.
Mhm.
Like especially just for ourselves, right? Which I know is a really big component of your programs. But and then in relation to others. And so we end up having like all these problems.
Yes, a lot of
um,
different conflicts.
yeah, yeah, we have like all these problems, and some of these problems are like really just highly internalized issues, like the body image that you talk about, the self-love, the self-care, the self-respect. Like it's hard for us to be able to resolve issues with others. At least I've seen this in my life and in lives of other women in my previous work, is that like we have trouble resolving it within ourselves. Hence, we have trouble resolving it with others, whether it be another woman, our children,
Mhm.
our partners if we choose to have them, all those sorts of things. And so take us just really quick on like what a journey could look like when we have been engaged in a, whether it be your program or self-study or whatever, but take us on a quick journey on like how we really like build this stuff. Like what does it look like? So I'm 8 years old, give or take, and I'm in like fourth or fifth grade. I'm getting ready to transition. I'm not a baby, even if I'm the baby of the family, but I'm not the baby,
Mhm.
and I'm not a teenager, and I have all these friends that are like giving me all these mixed messages, and I have social media, as you mentioned. I have like whatever entertainment type things that I might be involved in. Like, tell us what that could look like if we really are working on ourselves, and by the time we graduate high school, like how that could end up.
Definitely. So, um, working with children at around age 10 is when I start to give them vocabulary that they're not learning in school, and they're probably, some of them are not having these conversations with their moms, because sometimes as a mom you're trying to protect your children but not knowing that their peers are already like 10 steps ahead of them, so they're already learning certain things. So I try to help my girls to be on the same playing field and um, talk about myths. There's a lot of different myths that they believe in certain things, and then really I focus a lot on self love because they're very critical of themselves around 11, 12, because their bodies are changing, they're going through puberty, they're not understanding what really is going on, and some of them, are having a hard time with that transition. So we talk about how to how to talk positively about ourselves, because that's one of the things that I see preteens. They're always got something negative to say about themselves, and so we talk about positive self-talk, affirmations every day. We talk about checking in with ourselves to understand how we're feeling, why we're feeling the way that we're feeling, and when you take that time to check in with yourself, you might be able to shift your attitude towards other people. So as the time goes on, we talk about like vision. We make vision boards. We discuss stuff that current events, stuff that is happening on social media, and why do they follow the people that they follow? What is it that they're trying to obtain? So a lot of times they're thinking in the now, and their behavior is about what's happening right now.
Mhm,
But I help them to understand that certain behaviors can carry on throughout life,
mhm,
so paying attention to what they do now as a way of living, and the habits that they're forming, how that can affect them growing up. So we just talk about so many different things,
mhm,
but I feel like the transition is always that transition between elementary school to middle school is very critical, because they are changing and they feel a little lost at times, and they are not always comfortable talking to their parents, or even having that time at school to talk to teachers or guidance counselors or stuff like
mhm. Yeah, and the I it's such an important journey because I'm not sure about you, but I know for myself, and like I said, other women that I've known throughout my life and my previous work, my previous professional work, um, is that if we women who have struggled with some of these things, and then like you said, like we carry them into adulthood and all that good stuff, they just continue on. is that somehow we get further and further away, and then we feel like, oh, we're so behind our peers who
Mhm.
maybe look a certain way or act a certain way. And there's something that I say all the time. There's something that I say often, like I can't judge my insides by other people's outsides.
Definitely.
And that's a big part of like the self-love and the self-affirmations and stuff like that. But like when we are doing these things, like, you know, I don't know about you. I don't know about other people, but I know there was a point in my life in like my early mid 20s where I said, you know what, I don't want my life to look like this, or this in 10 years. And I don't know about other people, but I have always heard about like, what do you want to do in 5 years, 10 years, all that stuff, right? And I
Mhm.
always had kind of trouble figuring that out in a way. But what I did know is that I didn't want, there were certain behaviors that were around me, or, you know, different types of examples that I was like, that's what I don't want. That's
Mhm.
what I don't want. And there was a point in time where I noticed that I was doing some of those things. I might have been doing them a little bit differently, but I was essentially at the root doing those similar types of things. And I was
Mhm.
like, that's it, I'm done. And you know, a lot of us find ourselves, men too, but we're talking about women and girls today, like, but we find ourselves kind of hitting this point at some point in our lives and saying, huh, I gotta figure this out differently.
Mhm.
And we get on this path of like self-discovery and uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like self-development, like personal development, all that kind of stuff. And I think, but that's the really cool thing about what you do and what your programs are, because you start younger,
Yes.
so that maybe we're not in our mid 20s, or we're like graduating high school or graduating college or whatever it is. And then we're like finally in the world and we're like,
Yeah.
whoa, deer to headlights,
Yeah.
deer in a headlights. So so I love that. I love that so much. But I have a question though, and I think our listeners would have our listeners, our audience would have a question as well. Is it sounds like a lot of what you do could be really kind of hands-on stuff, but you have a very big online component to your programs, correct?
Yes, I do have an online component to my program, like you said. I do work mainly in the schools with in different schools, but I also work with girls online with the permission of their parents, of course. And some of the activities that I do in the school setting, I do it online as well. So I am on a mission to reach as many girls nationwide, so I can help girls in different states. And I want to create a network where we're helping each other and supporting each other and understanding some of the things that we are going through. We're not alone, because a lot of times girls are suffering alone and feeling like they are going through it by themselves. And so that's why I really like group work, because sometimes I'll ask a question, and when they see other people raising their hands, they're kind of shocked, because they're like, oh, I thought I was the only one going through this, or I didn't know. Even though we're friends, I just never even knew
Yeah.
that this is also happening to you.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy making that connection,
Mhm.
and also being that support for them and having their peers be that support as well.
Right. Yeah, because and that community piece I think is really important as well. And I love the way you highlighted, like sometimes a girl or a couple of girls will say, you know, they're going through something, and then someone pipes up and they're like, yeah, me too.
Mhm.
But the piece about that is that there's so much stigma
Mhm.
about talking about ourselves,
Yeah.
or talking about things that we're struggling with. There's so much stigma around emotions, emotional regulation, even, which is something that you really work on.
Mhm.
There's stigma around and shame. Like with the stigma, there's shame and embarrassment and all this like stuff, you know, like, in fact, I said to somebody today, I said, you know, I feel like really alone in this thing. I know I'm not, but I feel like that. And
Yeah.
she, of course, was like, yeah, we all feel like that. And you're not, you know, I mean, she just sort of affirmed that. And that's the thing about community. Like that was just one person, but I am more than certain that you get three people in a room all going through different things, all different stages of life. And at some point, somebody's going to say, yeah, me too.
Yes, definitely.
Or, yes, that was me. This is what I did.
Yes,
Or, hey, I know what that's like. Let's walk together.
definitely.
And but that's also what you do with your books. Like the whole point of having your books. What's your main character, Zola? Did I say that
Yes,
right?
my
Zola.
yeah,
So like your main character, that's what you do with your books too, is you sort of talk through these issues and like try to, it's another way of building that community, because some of us are readers, some of
mhm,
us are listeners, some of us are doers, and some of us are not at the point where we're ready to talk to others at all. Like we maybe want to hear, but we don't want to be seen.
yeah,
So how do we do that except maybe just read, right?
yes,
So tell us
definitely.
about Zola. So how did Zola come to be? First of all, it's a super cool name, but how did Zola come to be? Like how is this? How does this work?
Definitely. So when I was pregnant, I would go to bookstores and libraries, and I was looking for books that my daughter could read that she could relate to. And some of the books that it was about slavery and about like our history. I didn't see a lot of books with children of color that were fun and interactive and teaching lessons about friendship and family and stuff like that. So that's how I created the first book as a memory for my daughter. And as I was promoting that first book, um, my audience was basically saying this should be a series. So I created book two, and then book three is the Brownie Kid Squad, where there's a group of children that go through have adventure together and understand friendship and this summer I created a coloring book. It's interactive, and the characters from the Brownie Kid Squad are in that book. I believe that when children are exposed to different areas and exposed to different cultures and ways of being, they not only appreciate sometimes what they already have, but they are able to learn how to be in the world with other people and not just live within their own comfort
Mhm,
zones.
mhm. Yeah, right, exactly. Okay, first of all, I missed this coloring book that you created over the summer.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty excited. Like I want to buy one myself. Okay, but so the question is, one of the questions I have about the first books. Um, where did Zola come from? The name? Did you just throw it together? Is that like a bunch of things? Does it have a
No,
meaning?
I was actually gonna call my series after my daughter. My daughter's name is Abigail. I was gonna call Abby's Adventures, but I saw that that name was already taken,
Uh,
and so I was in the kitchen making brownies because I love brownies, and that came to mind like, oh, I should call it the Brownie Girls series. And while I was watching Grey's Anatomy, the name Zola came up, and I was like, oh my god, I love that name. So that's how I I snatched that name from Grey's
that
Anatomy.
is super cool. Okay, all right. Because I was like, wow, I love this name so much. Even though I don't share my kids' names and stuff online, I've got Monkey Boy, Turtle Boy, and Kangaroo Girl, right? But
Yeah.
they each have like their actual name is a name that we sort of like made up, like came up with. My husband dreamed the first name. It was in a dream.
Oh.
Yeah, it was in a dream. And our second son, his name came about because we sort of squashed some sounds and some letters together between my name and some different places. And then the baby girl, her name was, she was not named at birth. She did not have a name. We thought
Oh.
we had a name picked out, but once she was born, we both forgot. Like what was the name gonna be? So it was like the next morning, and she was born in the evening. So like the next morning, and my husband and I are talking about it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, we have to come up with a name. Like she doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
We can't just call her
Oh.
baby girl forever without a name."
Yeah.
And so yeah, and like literally, it just sort of it sort of just like came up out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
I totally get what you mean, like the whole. But that's why I was wondering about Zola. So but in your series, in your books, we don't learn a lot about Zola's family. Am I getting that right? We don't learn a ton about her family. It's mostly just about her and her friends, right?
Well, the first two books, the first book is A Family Vacation,
Oh,
and
okay.
then the second book is A Daddy and Daughter Day at the Zoo,
Okay.
and then the third is Adventure with Her Friends.
Okay. Maybe
So
that's where I was getting mixed up. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there's some there's it's not going in depth about her family, but it shows that um, the family structure and how the family is working together and um, having adventure together and exploring together.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And I think that's important that in books, and especially, um, I'm glad you brought it up actually, but especially in children's books and African American literature, if you would,
Mhm.
right? That we have these really positive
Mhm.
examples. Like, yes, it's great to do the history, like you said, and it's great to learn about this, that, and the other. But we need these really positive examples of people that look and sound a little bit like us and
Yes.
that have experiences that might be a little bit similar to what ours are, or that have like family history experiences, right? Even if the family, like Zola and her family, they have a good family,
Yeah.
but they're, and you're not going into it because it's not part of what you do, but the imagination of people who may be like, well, I have a good family, but I know that my mom or my dad or both maybe didn't come up the way they're raising me. And I
Yeah.
think that's really important that we have those examples. So I'm glad that you brought that up and you kind of highlighted that because I think that's really important.
Yes.
And I
And
did
it
want to
also
bring it
helps.
up.
Yeah. And it also helps the audience, the children that are reading my book, to dream big, because like with the traveling book, we went throughout the world. So I want the kids of color especially to know that they can obtain these kinds of dreams and to imagine themselves doing things outside of their own communities.
Yep. Yeah. And then the Brownie Girl Squad is a pretty good mix of characters. They're
Yeah.
not like, they don't all look and sound the same. So I
Yeah.
think that's also really important and very, personally, I think that's very spot on for the world that we're living in today and how diverse we can be together if we
Hmm.
try.
Yeah.
So, um, okay, but let's talk a little bit about, I want to go into the idea of receiving from others, right? And we're not talking about tangible things, but when we talk about self-empowerment, we talk about self-love, we talk about self-care, we talk about like emotional regulation, we talk
Mhm.
about those things, then we also need to talk about, in my opinion, we also need to talk about how we receive from others, because without these things, of course, we can't receive well, but even as we're building those things, like as you're working with girls who are building these aspects of their self identity, if you would, and their personhood, they have to also learn how to receive from others in a way that's positive and helps them continue to build. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So
Yes,
let's talk about that a
definitely.
little bit. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. One thing I talk to my girls about is compliments. A lot of girls cannot accept if someone says something nice about them, and I help them to understand that they don't have to be so critical of themselves, and that when someone is complimenting them, they should take a moment to receive that and take that in and let that be something that they put in their toolbox to draw from when they're feeling down and out, or if they're having negative thoughts about themselves, and recognize that other people are seeing things in themselves that they might not see within them, and to just appreciate the fact that they do have a lot to offer,
Mhm.
and to try to change that negative thinking or the negative self-talk.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I'm gonna guess that as you continue to work with all these various girls, no matter at what point in time they start working with you, but as you continue to see them developing within themselves, I'm sure that you also can see them now giving more of themselves, but with limits and boundaries positively, as opposed to this. There's a thing that I really believe still holds true in our society today, that women especially, all people in some ways, but mostly women, like we're supposed to just give and 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 never stop giving because we're so selfless if we do. However, isn't that a double-edged sword? Like this
It,
idea of selflessness?
yeah, it is. And taking that time to, because like a lot of there's a saying that says when your cup is empty you can't pour into other people. So there, I do help the girls to understand self-love and self-care, to take some time to build their foundation and help them help to work on their inner self, their inner beauty. So when they're able, so once they're feeling full and able to give, then the giving is a lot more meaningful, and it's felt in a different way when you're not exhausted. Especially,
Yeah.
I talk to the girls about, you know, when grow as they grow and then they have families and stuff like that. Being a mom can be tiring, but we do what we can. And a good mom, well, a mom, our mom, like a,
It's okay, just say it. I know what you're saying. Just say it.
a mom that takes care of herself will do even better giving to her children and her family.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's how we break cycles, and that's how we start new cycles, if you would.
Yes,
And
definitely.
yeah, and we send people off. Well, I say, so I share this sometimes, but not a whole heck of a lot. So our daughter, for example, right? So we were pregnant with our daughter. She's the last. No more. So, but she's the last, and we don't find out the gender of our children until they're born because we don't
Okay.
do ultrasounds and stuff. And
Oh, okay.
so we never know what we're gonna have until they're born.
Hmm.
And it was before we had gotten pregnant, and I don't know, I guess God, higher power, and I, whatever, put something in me and was like, hey, if you get pregnant again, know that it's okay for you to have a girl. I was always afraid to have a girl, and we're not going to go there, but I was kind of a scare. I didn't want another me.
Hmm.
But that's like a really deep statement without saying it all.
Hmm.
And so I had this, and then we were pregnant like a few months later, and we weren't super trying, but anyway. Um, so then we have a girl, and our daughter is like so special to me
Hmm.
because she's a girl. And so one of the things that I say, the reason I said all that story, one of the things that I say is that my daughter has given me a chance to mother well. Doesn't
Hmm.
mean that I wasn't mothering well before,
Hmm.
but I want to mother a female well. Um, and so that's what I say. But that's what you said too. Like, is that we have to learn how to do these things. But I have increased my self care since I
Hmm.
had her. Like,
Yeah.
it's like more important, and I don't even think about, like, I think it's like one of these things. I don't really think to myself, oh, I got to go do some self care because I have a daughter. Like, it's actually like this interior drive that's different for me today than it
Mhm.
was when I just had boys.
Yes.
And I don't know if other women have that, but I certainly have that. It's like this total shift. And I'm like, no, no, no,
Mhm.
I'm going here. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. Like, no, I'm not gonna like start making all this food. I made food. You can wait,
Yeah.
until I do this, and then I'll come, like whatever it is. And so, but back to like your program and the way you work with girls and stuff, that's why you teach them those affirmations, and you teach them the different ways of taking care of yourself, because taking care of yourself is not just like a spa day or go to get your nails done so you can look good or whatever, wear makeup if that's what you do. Like, it's not about that. Like, yes,
Yeah.
we need to like do something with our hair and all these things, but
Mhm.
we have to do those really, really inside things.
Yeah.
So um
One of the ways that journaling is a
yes.
huge proponent. And I give them, sometimes I give them prompts too, because sometimes they're like, Miss, we don't know what to write about. So I come up with different prompts. Um, especially ways to be grateful and thankful, because sometimes when they have the negative thoughts, I help them to turn that around by thinking about the things that you are grateful for, and then they're like, "Oh, Miss, I never thought about I never thought about it like this, or I never think about that." So sometimes when I bring certain topics to their attention, it gives them that sense of like shifting their mindset and shifting their way of thinking, and being a lot more clear on who, like, the power they have within themselves, because they don't just need to rely on other people to help them to feel better about themselves, that they have that power within themselves to do
Mhm.
that themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Um, okay. I'm trying to think. I feel like I had something that I wanted to ask you, and now I don't remember. So anyways, so because I forgot. That's the whole thing about organic conversations. Um, oh, that's what it was. I wanted to know, I wanted to hear from you. Uh, I wanted to hear from you a little bit about how about okay, so we've talked a lot about the girl portion, the doll girl portion of the program. But wait a second, doesn't doll stand for something? Let's do that first.
Yes,
Yeah.
it stands for determined, outgoing, loving leader. And the reason why I put that together was because I feel like determination is the drive for many things. And girl leaders, like, I feel like once they understand the power that they have within themselves, they can lead others to have that same power. And it's just like girl power taking over.
Yeah, right. Girl power, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, okay. So I wanted to cover that, but we talked a lot about sort of that portion of your business and all of that. But let's touch just really briefly on the mommy and me portion of your program, because I think that's also really important. Like, it's great for girls to just kind of go through it, and I think sometimes as like women and moms, and like we're busy and like we have lives and stuff, that we forget sometimes, like we're like, oh, this is a great program, I'm going to send my kid over there, and then we're still kind of like doing whatever.
Yeah.
And so the mommy and me portion of your business, like that arm of your business, I think is a really good segue and a good way to like bring families together in a lot of ways, right?
Definitely. So with my Mommy and Me program, I do focus on working with new moms, helping them to create that bond with their baby, because um, creating that attachment in infancy actually helps the relationship to build on a healthier and positive level, because as parents, we either parent the way our parents parented, or we try to figure something else out. And that's where I come in, when a lot of times you're like, oh, I don't want to be like my mother. But if you're not intentionally trying something different, you're going to fall into the patterns that you already know, and that that's already been ingrained in you. So I help moms to bond with their babies, and I come and I also connect with moms and their parents. In the work that I do in the schools, they can't speak to their mom, understand them, or whatever the case may be. So I come in and have that connecting about certain things. And a lot of moms want to be the best that they can be, but sometimes they just don't know what it is that
Mhm.
they either aren't doing, or not sure what it is they need to be doing. And a lot of times it's really listening, and uh, showing your child that you are hearing them, because a lot of times when I was growing up, it's like children are seen and not heard. But we live in a society today that the children need to be seen, and they need to be heard and felt, and know that what they have to say does matter.
Mhm.
Because when it doesn't matter to the people that they love most, they start to self harm or do things that their parents don't want them doing. And so that's where the connection comes with the Mommy and Me mentoring program.
Right, right. Um, And let's just this is the one thing I really wanted to make sure that we touched as well, because I think there may be questions, and I'm sure that you get these kinds of questions, especially since you know work with girls in school systems and stuff like that. Um, that this age group, 10 to 17, right, is yes, it's a very fragile age group in lots of ways, and I know that you get consent from parents in all sorts of ways, but I also know that because this is such a fragile age group and there's so much going on,
Mhm.
that I'm sure that you come up against, or I'm sure that you also help for parents and other, you know, trusted adults to watch for girls who may be at risk
Yeah,
of self-harm, and in the various ways they do that. I know we're mostly talking about that emotional way, but there are lots of physical ways that girls and women get into these self-harm kind of patterns.
mhm,
And so could you just touch very briefly, because you do have an online component, and I'm sure the question is going to come up. I'm sure you deal with it a lot. So just touch very briefly on how it is that you help to watch for those things, how you, and then how you kind of address that, because I'm sure that you don't do it alone.
definitely. So I do have a Dog Girl Squad Instagram page where I really talk about um, positive affirmations and overcoming certain things and the bond between mother and daughter. One thing as girls grow, especially children, as they grow, they wear like these big sweatshirts and try to hide. So one thing to definitely look for is if it's like 90 degrees outside and your child is wearing a hoodie, there's probably some indication that they might be cutting and or self-harming in some way. So I would definitely just taking that time to pay attention. I know that as parents we can be busy trying to do a whole bunch of different things, but just sitting down with your child, connecting with them, asking them how they feel, asking them if their day was challenging, how they it overcame that challenge, and just checking in on a regular basis and letting them know that you're there for them and that you can talk to them and that you're approachable. One of the critical things is that kids want to know that their parents are approachable.
Mhm.
A lot of them don't talk to their parents because they feel like they're not going to understand, or they're going to get in trouble, or they're going to just yell at them, or sometimes not even acknowledge what it is that they're trying to say to their parents. So that's one thing that I definitely would say is just plugging in and checking in on your children.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome. Okay, great. All right, and I know that we are coming close to our time here, Cindy. I've had a great conversation with you. And the one thing I did want to say, I had to go back to that self-harm piece, but the one thing I wanted to say about the Mommy and Me program, and I wanted to help to make clear to people. I'm sure they're gonna, you know, we're gonna give them your website so they can go check it out and everything. But I want to make clear to people, like you like to start with new moms, and then you work with them up until when, because at some point they can either drop out or transition, of course, to the doll girl. But just tell us just really quickly how that works.
So I usually work with new moms, like 0 to 3, and then they go into like preschool. So I continue on supporting them in my group. Um, and then they ask questions or we visit certain topics and stuff like that. So I my mommy and me program is like 0 to 3, and then my dog girl kind of picks it up again around age 10 to like the teenage years.
Right, right, yeah, because there is a bit of transition there that we
Yeah.
all have to go through.
Mhm.
And but you do have that, your group, for instance, as a supportive resource for moms as they continue trying to keep that bond with their child or children, and kind of strengthen all of that. So Okay, but we are coming a little close to the end, and I do the Starlight round of questions.
Okay.
So if you'd like to participate, this is how it works. So 3 questions. They're relatively surface, but they go a little bit deep. The caveat is that you cannot self edit. You have to just say whatever comes to your head when we ask these questions. So if you'd like to participate, we can do that really quick, and then we're going to make sure that everybody knows where they can find you, how they can get your books, and follow you on social and all that good stuff. Okay, so do you want to do Starlight Round?
Sure.
Okay, all right, Starlight Round, here we go. All right. Tell me the biggest personal change that you've had in the process of building your business.
The biggest personal change I would say is um, just trying to juggle between motherhood and working outside the home and also building my business. That balance can be a struggle sometimes, but that's one of like the things that I continue to work on, and that's one of my biggest personal changes.
Yeah, yeah, just trying to figure that new balance out. Yeah. Okay, next question is, what is your biggest? Okay, so now it's November, right? So let's make this a little bit. This will be a little bit of a twofold question. So tell us what your biggest dream goal for this year, or like what your biggest accomplishment in the year of 2019 has been for you and your business, and then what's your super big dream goal for 2020?
Um, my my biggest goal was to get into the school system with my dog walk program. I was able to do that, which I'm very excited about. And my huge goal for 2020 is to um, connect with at least 1,000 girls nationwide.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that lofty
Mhm.
goal.
Mhm.
And you're going to do some speaking at some point too. Is that in 2020 or not really?
I do different community events. I haven't done any speaking engagements online, but I do speaking engagements within my community.
Okay. All right. So those are still ongoing. That's awesome. Okay. Okay. And last question. So, what is your biggest life or business challenge right now? How would you like to see that change? And how can we help you?
Hmm. Um, well, it's like I always want to work with more girls, and being able to really have that online platform with a group of girls as we build like a network of girls where they're supporting each other. That's one of my biggest goals. The network is relatively small right now, but we are growing, and I want to continue to help the girls nationwide, like as I said. So if there's moms, dads listening to our talk today, I would definitely love for you to reach out to me and see how I can help you and your family.
Right, exactly. And social media is very challenging for everybody.
Mhm.
So yes, that is a big challenge.
Mhm.
And so to that end, how can people find you, find out more about you, your programs, how they can connect with you, kind of follow you around, not follow you around, but like follow you online.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
no, don't follow her around, no stalkers. But just kind of follow you online, learn about your programs and start getting engaged, find your books, just
Mhm.
different ways they can start being engaged with you.
Okay, so my website is cindyjcadet.com. There you will find information about my dog girl program, my mommy and me mentoring program. There's also some information about my books there, but my books are also available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. My handle on Instagram is Doll Girl Squad. So that's how you would find me on Instagram. And my Facebook group is Mommy and Me Mentor. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I have my website. And if you need to reach out to me personally, my email address is dollgirlsquad@gmail.com.
Awesome. Right. And we'll make sure that we post all those links below, everybody. But definitely go make sure that you check out Cindy, her Doll Girl Squad. I knew I was going to trip on it. I don't know. I can't just SQ today. But yeah, so find out. So go check out Cindy's website, cindyjcadet.com. find out about the Doll Girl Squad program, the Mommy and Me mentorship program. And if you have connections or want to be further connected, make sure that you also check out our Facebook group and like our Facebook page, of course. And go over to Instagram at Doll Girl Squad. So we will make sure that we are following you everywhere. Check out our books on Amazon or Barnes and Noble because that's a big deal. They're really good books, and I suggest you look at them. So Cindy, just really quickly, tell us one more time who you are, what you do, and then we will say goodbye to our guest for today.
Sure. Once again, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Cindy J. Cadet. I am an author, I am a mom, and I am a mentor. I work with girls and I work with moms to help build the strong bond that we all need within our family relationships.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I loved having you, Cindy, and I really appreciate you sharing with us your business, your big dream goals, the accomplishments that you've had, and just kind of the way you work with women and moms and girls, especially, so that we can all kind of create, a better place, at least for ourselves, right?
Definitely.
And so I really appreciated having you on today's Sparkle and Shine. For those of you who are here, thank you again so much for being here. My name is Kendall Patton of New Oregon Content Creation Services, where I work with business owners and entrepreneurs to help them to leverage their existing content so that they can save some time, create some additional freedom, and save their energy. So everyone have a great, wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.